breaking his silence and standing firm in his denial.
Nothing in the allegations that have been printed ever happened.
Australia's highest law officer, Christian Porter, named himself as the minister at the centre of historical rape allegations. The Australian of the Year targets the Prime Minister over his response to sexual assault accusations made by a former Liberal staffer.
Having children doesn't guarantee a conscience.
International borders to stay shut until at least June as the Russian variant of COVID-19 creeps into the country. What's behind China's push to relocate Uyghurs far from home?
This is SBS World News with Darren Mara.
Good evening. Attorney General Christian Porter has strongly denied any wrongdoing after he identified himself as the minister alleged to have raped a teenage girl in Sydney in 1988. During an emotional news conference, he said nothing in the allegations ever happened and that he had been subjected to the most wild and intense accusations he could remember in Australian politics. The minister broke his silence 5 days after the allegations first plunged the Morrison government into crisis.
Today, the nation's first law officer, Christian Porter, fronting up, confirming he's the cabinet minister at the centre of a historical rape allegation and strongly protesting his innocence.
And it's the truth, and that is that nothing in the allegations that have been printed ever happened.
Mr Porter is alleged to have raped a teenager in 1988 while at a student debating competition in Sydney. He says he knew the young woman.
I was 17 years old and the other person was 16. It was a long time ago, and I'd always remembered it as a happy time. But I can say categorically that what has been put in various forms, in allegations, simply did not happen.
The allegations came to light last week after politicians were sent an anonymous letter outlining the claims. It was referred to authorities, though New South Wales police found insufficient admissible evidence to proceed. That's because the woman who made the allegation took her own life last year and never made a formal complaint. Mr Porter addressing her family.
That I do not mean to impose anything more upon your grief, but I hope that you will also understand that because what is being alleged did not happen, I must say so publicly.
The Attorney General outright denying he ever had any sexual contact with the woman.
I did not sleep with the victim. We didn't have anything of that nature happen between us.
Mr Porter saying he's become the victim of a trial by media and was never given the opportunity to defend himself.
While I have followed the rules and stayed silent, I have been subject to the most wild, intense, unrestrained series of accusations that I can remember.
He's now considering legal action.
And some of the stuff online is just, it's just incredible. I will look at it all.
With the police investigation now over, the lawyer who represented the woman says a denial is not enough.
Given his position and given the gravity of the allegation, it needs to be a formal, properly constituted inquiry led by someone appropriately eminent.
What would I say in front of that inquiry? What would that inquiry ask me to do? To disprove something that didn't happen 33 years ago.
Labor says the Prime Minister needs to step in.
It's very clear that in my mind that this will require further leadership and action from the Prime Minister.
Mr Porter adamant he's done nothing wrong and won't step aside.
My guess is that if I were to resign and that set a new standard, well, there wouldn't be much need for an Attorney General anyway, because there would be no rule of law left to protect in this country.
But he will take a period of medical leave.
All of my life, I've just pushed through. But for the many caring family and friends who've asked me that question over the course of the last week, are you okay? I've got to say my honest answer is I really don't know.
Uncertain of his future, but certain of one thing.
I will finish by saying the things that I have read did not happen. They just never happen.
And let's cross live now to our political correspondent, Pablo Vinales. Pablo, this is a moving story, and there was a late development this afternoon. Tell us what happened.
Darren, good evening. Well, this development coming amid the calls for a coronial inquest into the death of the woman who has made the allegation. Now, the South Australian coroner, David Whittle, has said that police only gave him the file into her death 2 days ago, and that having read that and having seen some of the subsequent media reports from that in recent days, he wants police to provide him further information. Now, he says in a statement, "I determined that the investigation is incomplete. Once that investigation has been completed to my satisfaction, I shall determine whether to hold an inquest." Darren, you may recall the former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull has been leading these calls for a coronial inquest.
And Pablo, the Attorney General has been firm in his denials. Is that the end of it now?
In short, it is far from the end of it. Christian Porter is standing firm, and while he is taking a period of short leave, he does intend to return. Now, in the meantime, the Employment Minister, Michaelia Cash, will step into his ministerial roles as the Attorney General and the Minister for Industrial Relations. But even though Mr Porter has gone public, there are still calls for the Prime Minister to establish an independent inquiry and to have him stand aside pending that inquiry. The Greens and the woman's lawyer are leading those calls. Labor not necessarily going that far, though they say it is incumbent now on the Prime Minister to assure Australians Mr Porter is fit for the role. Darren?
OK, thank you. Pablo Vinales reporting from Canberra. Australian of the Year, Grace Tame, has hit out at the Prime Minister over his response to a rape allegation by former Liberal staffer Brittany Higgins. She also urged the nation's leaders to break the silence around child sexual abuse and do more to help survivors coming forward.
Finding the courage to speak out.
Usually the Press Club podium is reserved for Australia's political movers and shakers. Today, the room's silent, attention absorbed by the powerful words of 26-year-old Grace Tame and her story of resilience.
I cried more than once while writing this. I may be strong, yes, but I am human just like everyone else.
The 2021 Australian of the Year, a tireless champion for survivors of sexual violence, speaking as the Morrison government finds itself stricken by allegations of rape.
It's not surprising to me at all. Cover-up culture, the abuse of power is not unique to Parliament.
Her most searing remarks reserved for the man who gave her the honour. Scott Morrison's handling under scrutiny after he said his initial response to the alleged rape of Brittany Higgins in a ministerial office was to consult his wife Jenny.
She said to me, "You have to think about this as a father first. What would you want to happen if it were our girls?"
What do you make of the rhetoric and the way he's handled those allegations?
It shouldn't take having children to have a conscience. And actually, on top of that, having children doesn't guarantee a conscience.
Just a supplementary on that. The audience stunned. She had this to say on these comments from Mr Morrison in 2019, where he had stood up for the right of women who came forward to be believed.
Women in those circumstances, I think, should have a greater sense of confidence that if they tell their stories, that they'll be believed.
Do you think those words ring true now in the way he's handled that?
Clearly not.
Ms Tame says reform on a national scale is needed, calling on a consistent definition of sexual consent across Australia and a framework that supports survivors when they come forward.
The more of us that come out and speak about this, the more the conversation will be normalised and the more the power will be taken away from predators and returned to where it belongs.
Fearing more will fall victim unless the silence is broken. Naveen Razik, SBS World News.
And anyone affected by sexual assault can seek help by dialling 1800-RESPECT. That's 1800 937 328. Well, Australia is enjoying its biggest economic rebound on record, and SBS finance editor Ricardo Gonçalves joins me now with more. Ricardo, this is a stunning turnaround after a recession just 6 months ago.
Darren, Australia's economy grew by a better than expected 3.1% in the 3 months to December. That means it's experienced 2 consecutive quarters above 3% for the first time in more than 60 years. We heard last year about the potential for Australia to go through a V-shaped recovery, meaning a sharp contraction followed by a quick bounce, and this is what it looks like. But that recovery is uneven, and our economy is still 1.1% below its 2019 levels.
Australians opened their wallets and saved less in the last 3 months of 2020, leading the country's rebound from the COVID-induced recession, despite government support halving in the December quarter.
The Australian economy begins 2021 in a very strong position.
Driving the lift, car sales rose a record 31.8%, reflecting higher disposable incomes as people shift their spending from international travel. As trading restrictions eased, spending increased too on services such as recreation and culture, hotels, cafes and restaurants. Victorians far outspent the rest of the nation, tripling consumption of New South Wales residents as strict lockdowns were lifted.
The rebound in quarterly economic growth is unsurprising, given it's coming off a very low base and because this quarter had largely the reopening of the Victorian economy.
Investment in the property market also fuelled the rise, as well as businesses buying up more machinery and equipment. Agriculture, forestry and fishing led the gains for industry off the back of a large grain harvest. But not everyone is feeling the benefits of an improving economy.
What looks like a recovery on paper still feels like a recession for millions of Australians who are doing it tough.
The better-than-expected figures come as wage growth remains weak and government support tapers off. The question now is the recovery sustainable, especially when JobKeeper ends this month?
It's still a very bumpy road ahead. There are some major challenges. There is a long way to go, and literally we do not know what's around the corner.
The rate of recovery will start to slow, but we're now on track, I think, probably within the next few months to get above our pre-coronavirus level of economic activity in Australia.
But if 2020 taught us anything, it's to expect the unexpected. Catalina Flores, SBS World News.
Now, there are some fundamental changes in our economy, which I will tell you about a little later. Darren.
Okay, thanks, Ricardo. We'll see you shortly. Coming up next, the US targets Russia over the jailing of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. Will Moscow hit back? Safely home, but still shaken, kidnapped schoolgirls tell of their ordeal after their release. And the alarming number of racially motivated attacks against Chinese Australians.
Tonight at 7:35, Britain's most historic towns. Then Michael Palin, Travels of a Lifetime. And later, do not miss the spectacular and shocking series final of Vikings.
Someone you've never met can touch you with a story you'll never forget.
For 43 years of my life, I was in a cult.
No matter how much our lives change,
I can't even look at him.
One thing always stays the same.
I come from red dirt and black soil.
The power of our stories.
My family has a problem with our relationship because Paul's a white man.
Kumi Taguchi hosts the new season of Insight. Starts March 16 on SBS and on demand.
Looking for a huge meal? Grab the legendary Subway footlong.
Get into the Good Guys for big bonus buys. Up to $300 real cash on a huge range of cooking appliances. Get real cash on this Westinghouse oven, real cash on this Bosch oven, real cash on this LG dishwasher, plus real cash on this Fisher & Paykel dishwasher. Only at the Good Guys.
Right now at Snooze, Velocity members can save up to 40% off. And for this week only, earn double Velocity points. Hurry, up to 40% off and double Velocity points ends Sunday.
Amazing what a little snooze can do.
Always make a good impression.
Connecting Bluetooth.
Or just be yourself. Change the rules. The Toyota CHR. Oh, what a feeling. Toyota.
Cookie people, cream people, crumbs people, clean people, twist people, lick people, dunk people, munch people. It's time to play, people. If you twist, lick, dunk, then you're my people. We are Oreo people.
Sub.
Turn it out.
Yep. Whew. That's a lot of food.
Turn it out.
Subway. Eat fresh.
كيف تعمل لقاحات كوفيد-19؟
¿Cómo podrás acceder a ellas?
SBS Yemen kumenyesha Abanyaustralia bose.
Về kế hoạch triển khai vaccine ngừa Covid-19 của chính phủ.
ਇਸ ਲਈ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਰ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ
请用您的语言获取有关疫苗的信息与事实，获取信息，保持安全，拯救生命。
Visita sbs.com.au/coronavirus. Discover Australian history in all its glorious colour.
Everybody's eye follows Phylap.
The victories, the challenges, and the often untold history. Australia in Colour starts next Wednesday 8:30 on SBS and on demand.
Australia is to keep its international borders closed for at least another 3 months in a bitter blow to almost 40,000 Australians who remain stranded overseas. An extension to the emergency biosecurity measures was brought in shortly before 2 people tested positive for the Russian variant of COVID-19 at a Brisbane quarantine hotel.
When Australian Air Force veteran Peter Sage travelled to Cambodia, he was seeking relief from PTSD.
It really changed my life. It really relaxed how I was and who I am. So it was really a spiritual journey for myself to recover.
But these days, the 46-year-old worries about how he'll get home to his elderly parents and twin boys on the Gold Coast in the event of an emergency.
I don't have that opportunity just to come home. I can't just say, OK, I'll get on the next flight. If it cost me $10,000, I would be on the next flight. But that opportunity isn't there anymore. So it does put a lot of stress back onto me.
Australia's international border has been closed since March last year, and with a new 3-month extension, it will remain shut until at least June. It's a blow to 39,000 Australians currently registered as being overseas and wanting to return. Around 5,000 are considered vulnerable. Restrictions on outbound travel for Australians have also been extended. Melissa Bridson is grieving after the sudden death of her mother in her native France.
She was 62, she was very healthy, and unfortunately COVID took her.
The Townsville-based mother of 2 longs to give her dad a hug, but travelling to be with him isn't going to happen.
I can't take the risk of being stuck in France, not being able to come back here, and even going in France for a couple of weeks and coming back and having to quarantine for another 2 weeks. It's a long time. My children are 4 and 5 years old. It's a very long time to be away from them.
Melissa, though, understanding of the government's decision to extend restrictions.
Obviously, we're very lucky in Australia. We have very few cases, and we want that to stay like that. I want my children and my husband to be safe here and everyone else.
The border closure extension comes as 2 returned travellers test positive for the Russian variant of COVID-19 in Brisbane, arriving on a Qatar Airways flight from Doha on February 17. 74 additional passengers are now being tested for the virus and have been ordered to extend their 14-day quarantine period for a further 5 days. Philippa Carisbrook, SBS World News.
Brazil has posted its worst single-day death toll in the pandemic, 1,641 lives lost to COVID-19. The country is now grappling with a new variant of the virus that has spread to other parts of the world. Brazilian state governors saying they'll now join together and bypass the President Jair Bolsonaro's government in order to buy vaccine jabs directly because of delays in the federal rollout.
Few places have felt the ravages of this pandemic as badly as Brazil. Hospitals at breaking point, the virus claiming more than 257,000 lives there.
Yes, we are going through the worst scenario of the pandemic since its beginning.
And so far, less than 4% of the 210 million people have been vaccinated.
I'm scared because there are asymptomatic people, and for those of us who are not in an at-risk group, we don't know if we'll get a vaccine, and that's scary.
The country with the world's second highest death toll is now grappling with the new P1 variant found in the Amazon's largest city of Manaus.
With COVID variants coming, it's going to be very difficult to avoid reinfections, and this raises questions about achieving herd immunity from natural infection.
It's unclear how effective current vaccines are against the variant, now detected in the UK and at least 7 US states. More than 20% of Americans have now received at least one dose. The president saying everyone will get theirs by the end of May, 2 months ahead of schedule.
Two of the largest healthcare and pharmaceutical companies in the world that are usually competitors are working together on the vaccine. This is the type of collaboration between companies we saw in World War II.
3 yet-to-be-published studies have found that recovered patients could be reinfected with the Brazilian variant. However, Texas has lifted its mask mandate.
It is now time to open Texas 100%.
Too soon, according to health experts.
If we do not completely suppress this, we will continue to be challenged by variants, which have a way of coming back to bite us, as they say.
Countries have ramped up their vaccine rollouts, shipments arriving in Nigeria, Angola and the Democratic Republic of Congo as part of the global sharing scheme COVAX.
Between now and the end of May, 237 million doses of vaccines will be allocated to 142 participating economies and countries in COVAX.
Supplies coming from India, now the world's largest manufacturer by volume.
This is one of the single largest consignments that has left India, which is now emerging as the pharmacy of the world.
36 million doses have been delivered to 36 different countries. Another 15 nations will receive their supplies soon. Virginia Langeberg, SBS World News.
Protests against last month's military coup in Myanmar are showing no signs of abating. The junta has imposed new charges on ousted President Win Myint as Myanmar's Southeast Asian neighbours struggle for consensus in efforts to end the crisis. And there are new reports of police using live ammunition on protesters in the north.
In the northwestern town of Kale, riot police advanced on anti-coup protesters. There was water cannon and tear gas. Widely circulated on social media, these images purport to show injuries which rescue workers say were due to live ammunition used to disperse the crowds. Around 20 people were reportedly hurt, one critically. In Myanmar's biggest city, Yangon, police are seen here firing at unarmed demonstrators. It's unclear the kind of ammunition used. Among the demonstrators, relatives of the hundreds arrested. Tan Myint Ong, famous for founding a charity offering free funerals for the poor, was taken in the dead of night by armed men. With at least 18 protesters killed on Sunday, the bloodiest day so far in the month-long crackdown, hope turned to the first informal meeting on the crisis among Southeast Asian foreign ministers. The 10-member regional ASEAN group stood by Myanmar before its moves towards democracy. Myanmar's representative said to have defended the coup, citing alleged voting irregularities in last November's elections. Indonesia's foreign minister urging all sides to start talking.
Dan kondisi yang kondusif bagi komunikasi dan dialog harus segera diciptakan, termasuk melepaskan tahanan politik.
Singapore's leader, equally outspoken against the coup and its aftermath.
To arrest Aung San Suu Kyi as well as her ministers and the president, and
charge them with walkie-talkie offences and things like that. I don't think that's going to help solve the problem.
ASEAN has a policy of non-interference, and not all members agreed on freeing the ousted leader. But some regional figures say it's high time the forum had a firm plan.
ASEAN expectation must, in the center of it all, I believe, place the democratic wish and will of the people of Myanmar must be at the forefront.
That looks unlikely anytime soon. This peaceful rally of students in Mandalay ended the way many have, broken up in a cloud of tear gas. Raina Sarampayat, SBS World News.
6 years of war in Yemen has left the country on its knees. 16 million people, more than half the population, are going hungry. 5 million are on the brink of famine. Many of them are children. The UN Secretary-General says growing up in Yemen is a special kind of hell and warned the world is not doing enough to help. The international community has pledged $1.7 billion to avert large-scale famine in the country this year, but that's less than half what is needed. And the UN says that's a death sentence.
Imagine if this was the school your child was going back to. The building and its pupils hanging by a thread. It's a snapshot of childhood in Yemen. This is Ahmed. He stands in when his teacher is absent. He's 9 and was born blind. He's a beacon of hope and resilience.
الكتابة بس مش كيش درس يا كتابة كدس كي كتبت شو كون درس الفصول كلها شو راح أستدري نفسي معاش طالب.
Here in one of the world's poorest countries, the United Nations says cuts in aid will be a death sentence. The spectre of famine is hanging over this land. In Adala province, mothers queue to have their children checked for signs of severe acute malnutrition. Baby Hamas is the latest to be diagnosed. Nurse Abdullah Al-Qadri is pained by what he sees.
أحس بانكسار نفس، أحس بانكسار نفسية، أحس لأنه هذا شغلي يشعرني إيش يقولوا بانكسار الحالة هذاك لما تشوف زي هذا إيش تسوي له؟
It's already too late for Saif Hassan. This video was taken the day before he died from hunger. His brother Abu Bakr was by his side.
يتنهس بس قلبه واقف كان والنفس فيه كان فيه به نفس وقسينا قبل شوية حوالي ساعات وهو ينازع الموت ينازع الموت ينازع حتى انتهى.
Saif lies buried here. Aid agencies warn cuts in funding will be measured in lives lost.
Orla Guerin reporting there from southern Yemen. Russia has promised retaliatory sanctions on the US after the Biden administration made its first significant move against Moscow over the poisoning and subsequent imprisonment of opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The US government imposed sanctions on several senior Russian government officials and businesses, putting it in line with sanctions imposed by the EU and the UK.
Alexei Navalny's arrest and imprisonment by Russian authorities last month was swift and determined. And now so too is the international backlash. The new Biden administration announcing its first major move against Russia, targeted sanctions over Mr. Navalny's poisoning and imprisonment.
We are exercising our authorities to send a clear signal that Russia's use of chemical weapons and human rights abuses have severe consequences.
The US sanctions against 7 senior Kremlin officials will see their US assets frozen and their rights to travel to the country restricted. 14 companies or agencies associated with chemical agent production have also been targeted. In a coordinated move, the EU ramped up its sanctions too, adding 4 more officials to its existing list.
The United States is working closely with our closest allies and partners in Europe to make clear that this kind of behaviour is not acceptable.
The list includes Alexander Bortnikov, the decade-long director of the National Security Service, the FSB, as well as other high-profile names like the Prosecutor General and the country's prisons administrator. Russia's foreign minister vowing Moscow will respond.
Instead of honest cooperation without secrets, they punish us. It does not do honour to anybody who makes decisions like these. Regarding the answer, we will definitely answer.
While the sanctions are being seen as largely symbolic, they're the first indication of the Biden administration's plan to manage Russia differently than the Trump administration did. It's pledged to confront the Kremlin on several subjects of diplomatic tension.
The type of relationship that this president intends to have with President Putin will be quite different from the last administration.
Mr. Navalny has already begun his 2.5 years in prison, a sentence that the Kremlin says no international sanction will be able to change. Amelia Dunn, SBS World News.
A leaked document meant only for the eyes of top Chinese officials is raising new questions about Beijing's policy of relocating Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities. Hundreds of thousands have been moved from Xinjiang province to factory jobs, often far from home. China insists it's a way of tackling rural poverty and unemployment, but a BBC investigation has found evidence it's being used as a method of uprooting and assimilating the population.
At this factory, the Uyghur workers are clearly visible, more than 2,000 miles from home, brought all the way to central China by a massive relocation scheme. Now the BBC has found compelling evidence of how it works. In this Xinjiang village, the authorities need 100 people to send to jobs on the other side of the country. They set up a stall, but this 2017 state media report shows no one's interested. So they go house to house. If you stay here, this official says, you'll be married soon and never be able to leave. Will you go, he asks. No, she says. But with a mixture of propaganda and heavy persuasion, the young woman eventually agrees. I'll go if others go, she says. The BBC has new evidence that this separation from family and culture is, in part at least, precisely the point. A Chinese study produced for senior officials says labour transfers help assimilate Uyghur minorities, transform their thinking and reduce Uyghur population density. The study was posted online in error. Some of Xinjiang's mainly Muslim minorities are sent first to the giant re-education camps where China says it's fighting extremism, then to the factories.
Hello.
Very few have managed to leave China after their release.
There were 200 workers in the factory. We sold children's clothes and we are obliged to sing the Chinese national anthem. They said, the faster you work, the faster we'll let you go.
But most of those transferred to work have not been in the camps and are sent direct from poor villages. The study also outlines how they are transported in groups, accompanied by security guards, and put through political indoctrination.
This is just an unprecedented authoritative source written by really leading academics and former government officials with unprecedented high-level access in Xinjiang itself. That drives home the implications of what is going on here. There are higher goals of manipulating population density and demographics that, in my opinion, are very concerning, and they really point us towards crimes against humanity.
This factory makes plastic mouldings for some major international brands.
So we've spoken to one worker here who has confirmed that as many as a few hundred Uyghurs are employed in this factory. But unlike the Chinese staff, they are unable to leave the factory premises.
In a statement, the Chinese government said the study seen by the BBC reflects only the author's personal view, and much of its contents are not in line with the facts. But in large part it echoes government thinking. Some Uyghurs, it concludes, are unwilling to leave their homes, a problem that should be tackled with strong guidance and persistent measures.
John Sudworth reporting from Beijing. Well, Chinese state media has gone on the offensive, accusing Western news outlets of fabricating stories about China, particularly reports about what's happening in Xinjiang. It comes just days after a Chinese diplomat accused the Australian media of unfairly representing China. It's another dent to the deteriorating relationship between Beijing and the West. And as tensions fray, a new report suggests Chinese Australians are being targeted.
Welcome to The World today on CGTN, coming to you live from Beijing.
The lead story on Chinese state television. Beijing hits back at the British press. The news bulletin broadcasting comments from a foreign ministry spokesman objecting to what he calls biased coverage.
They have ideological prejudice towards China and fabricate news about China.
It comes after similar comments from the deputy head of the Chinese embassy here in Australia. In a speech to business leaders this week, he called out media outlets for their unfavourable coverage of Chinese Australians, saying it seems that being friendly to China, to be a friend of China, becomes a sin and a mistake in Australia. Tensions between the two countries have been simmering for some time, and a new study suggests there's been an increase in racism as a result.
The high-level politics really does impact daily lives and the safety of Chinese Australians.
Of the 1,000 Chinese Australians surveyed, 18% reported being physically threatened or attacked because of their heritage last year. Almost one-third say they were treated unfairly. 37% say they were called offensive names. Despite this, 77% say Australia is still a good place to live, and 63% feel they belong here.
We as a society need to really pressure those in positions of leadership to actually call out these attacks.
Popular Chinese Australian YouTuber Edgar Liu says he was shocked by the figures of abuse in the Lowy report.
I personally cannot relate to that number. According to my own experience, I've been here for 7 years, including the last year, so I've encountered 1.5 racial discriminating kind of thing.
He says that while he's been racially abused in the street, he generally feels accepted.
Things like that will make me stop and think, oh, maybe Australia's not as good as I thought. But after I stop and think, that I can attribute to, you know, there are always jerks everywhere, no matter where you are.
The report suggests the COVID-19 pandemic, which was first detected in China, has also contributed to growing racism. Lucy Murray, SBS World News.
Turning to the US, and the FBI director has described January's deadly riots on Capitol Hill as an act of domestic terrorism, blaming white supremacy groups for the violence. Christopher Wray was grilled by senators on whether officials did enough with key intelligence to prevent the attack, as he also debunked conspiracy theories surrounding the siege.
Affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
Fronting up to Congress for the first time since the insurrection in the halls behind them. The FBI director blunt over who deserves blame.
Quite a number who what we would call sort of militia violent extremists, the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers. We've already identified individuals who advocate for what you would call sort of white supremacy.
Christopher Wray, a Trump appointee, testifying to the Senate Judiciary Committee over the January 6 attack.
I was appalled, like you, at the violence and destruction. That siege was criminal behavior, plain and simple, and it's behavior that we, the FBI, view as domestic terrorism.
Director Ray debunking several conspiracy theories regularly peddled in right-wing circles, including that some rioters were left-wing radicals masquerading as Trump supporters.
We have not seen any evidence of that, certainly at this
Is there
stage.
any evidence at all that it was organized or planned or carried out by groups like Antifa or Black Lives Matter?
We have not seen any evidence to that effect.
He then dispelled Team Trump's most repeated claim, widely seen as the insurrection's main inspiration.
You're aware of no evidence of widespread voter fraud in the 2020 presidential election.
We are not aware of any widespread evidence of voter fraud.
The FBI director then forced to defend his bureau's handling of information, senators focusing on a single report from the FBI's field office in Norfolk, Virginia on January the 5th. A day before Congress was stormed. It warned right-wing radicals were coming to Washington to attack the Capitol.
Why didn't the FBI sound the alarm?
That information was quickly, as in within an hour, disseminated and communicated with our partners, including the U.S. Capitol Police, including Metro PD, in not one, not two, but 3 different ways.
Around 300 alleged rioters have so far been arrested, but the threat of violent extremism across the U.S. is rising. Director Ray warning right-wing domestic terror cases have tripled since he took office in 2017. Security around the Capitol tightening over fears of another attack.
On March 4th, Trump will be reinstated as president.
QAnon conspirators now gripped by a new fantasy that Donald Trump will be sworn in on Friday. March 4 was the inauguration day up until 90 years ago. Omar Dehan, SBS World News.
279 Nigerian schoolgirls who were kidnapped last week have been recounting their ordeal after the state government negotiated to have them returned. They were taken from a boarding school in Nigeria's northwestern Zamfara state, a resource-rich and largely lawless region.
A moment of gratitude and relief. Their girls are coming home. Emotions overflowing as 5 days of anguish and fear come to an end.
I'm happy.
He wasn't the only one. This girl calling her father to say, "I'm here. I'm coming home."
Hi, I was born just now, and I feel very fine. We thank Almighty Allah.
But that joy will soon be tempered by the revelations to come. The story of what happened to these 279 schoolgirls, written on their faces. That was Friday night, when they were taken from an all-girls boarding school in the northern town of Jangebe and marched into the jungle at gunpoint, beaten along the way. Bruised and sore, they're being medically examined before being reunited with their families.
Despite the fact that other media has said is 317, it is not correct. It is 279 children, and all of them are here.
That was the second group of school children to be safely returned in a week. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari deploying a massive military presence in Zamfara. He's vowed to fight what he described as grim and heartbreaking incidents. Last week, he cautioned state governments against negotiating with kidnappers. Zamfara State offered amnesty for this latest crime, but officials say they didn't pay the bandits ransom.
People are complaining that bandits are being given ransom for doing the same thing all over again. So it's almost like an established industry.
Since the high-profile mass kidnappings by militant group Boko Haram, which targeted schools based on anti-Western ideology, bandits have increasingly targeted northern schools for money. 100 school children taken by Boko Haram are still missing. But for these families, the nightmare is over. Camille Bianchi, SBS World News.
While the economy is recovering faster than expected, it still faces some major headwinds, and SBS finance editor Ricardo Gonçalves joins me again. Ricardo, how has the pandemic changed the economy?
Darren, yes, our economy is expanding faster than expected, but it is smaller
than it was pre-pandemic. AMP Capital says while GDP is now expected to get back to pre-COVID levels by the middle of the year, it will still be around 3% below its pre-COVID trend path and will probably stay that way and below that because of a collapse in population growth. HSBC adds that closed borders will weigh on migration, tourism and exports and thus limit growth, along with permanent behavioural challenges or changes like work from home, reduced business travel and an increase in online sales. And while unprecedented government stimulus like JobKeeper, which ends later this month, has helped, the economic recovery has been uneven.
The big companies, the big retailers, dare I say, Bunnings and these iron ore producers are doing really well. They're the drivers of this rebound in the economy. The small business sector, the ones that rely on foot traffic or smaller activity to go on, they're the ones suffering. Tourism, of course, and education are the other ones that are under a lot of pressure.
We'll get another piece of the economic puzzle tomorrow when official retail sales numbers for January will be released. Meanwhile, those small businesses Mr Koukoulas was talking about will get a new advocate in former Liberal Minister and Franchise Council Chair Bruce Bilson, who appeared on SBS's Small Business Secrets previously. He'll replace Kate Carnell as the federal government's Small Business Ombudsman from next week. From small business to big business, and Rio Tinto Chairman Simon Thompson will step down over the destruction of a sacred Indigenous site in Western Australia last year. Mr Thompson said the Juukan Gorge cave blasts in the Pilbara had overshadowed the successes of the miner, adding he's ultimately accountable for the failings of the event. 3 other executives, including former CEO J.S. Jacques, previously resigned, and another will go by the end of the year. And still in Australia's boardrooms, Nine Entertainment has named Stan boss Mike Sneesby as its new CEO. He'll replace Hugh Marks, who announced his resignation in November after 5 years as chief executive. To the Australian share market now, which made gains following the GDP data release. By the close, a 200 added 0.8%. The miners did well, along with the banks. Cochlear lost 3%, though. The Australian dollar is back above 78 US and is higher against the other major global currencies. And speaking of currencies, we're likely to be using less cash in store in future. That's according to payment processing company WorldPay. It says cash payments in Australian stores will fall from 8% of purchases in 2020 to just 2%, and the 98% of non-cash payments will be driven by a rise in mobile payment platforms, increasing to 15.5%, although cards will still dominate there.
We don't expect anywhere to become completely cashless. Cash has a place in the economy. If you think about donations, if you think about tips at restaurants and bars, so we have to absolutely think that cash will still exist for certain sectors of the market.
It's something Woolworths has discovered recently. It is reintroducing cash payments at its Metro stores, which were trialling card and mobile payments only. So it seems sometimes cash is king.
Sure is. Thank you, Ricardo. Coming up next, tropical cyclone Niran batters banana plantations in far north Queensland with winds up to 140 kilometres an hour, and why several Dr. Seuss titles are being pulled from publication.
Tonight at 7:35, Britain's most historic towns. Then Michael Palin, Travels of a Lifetime. And later, do not miss the spectacular and shocking series final of Vikings.
Berlin's the crime capital of the world right now. So, what's your impression so far? May I be blunt? Why'd you ask me to come here? I want you to help me take out the Nazis.
You see, this war was like one of your little games.
I need your help right now.
Shadow Play starts tomorrow 8:30 on SBS and on demand.
King, you have a son.
We are going back to America. Oh, no, Your Majesty.
Feel right in his ground. Feel good in his
Hey!
Look,
Scooter, come up in here. It is good to see you.
Scooter Kinte and Ebola.
Nelson Mandela and Winnie.
I'm back.
Say it again. Feel right. Feel good. Bang. I will catch you. I will catch you.
Fantastic furniture. Find your fantastic.
New tortilla pockets are ready for takeoff. And we are go!
Launching to mess-free Mexican with new tortilla pockets from Old El Paso.
At Priceline Pharmacy, we're celebrating you with savings like 40% off L'Oreal Paris skincare and cosmetic ranges. That's 40% off the entire L'Oreal Paris skincare and cosmetic ranges. So join us at Priceline Pharmacy, where every day is a festival of you.
At Coles, we're helping lower the cost of easy dinners with Coles RSPCA-approved chicken drumsticks, down to $4 a kilo. Perfect with a delicious Coles Kitchen Salad Kit. 2 packs for just $8. Coles, value the Australian way.
Tuesday nights from March 16 on SBS.
It's good. Stories that matter from Australia and around the world.
At 8:30, we welcome Insight's new host, Kumi Taguchi, with even more of the personal and powerful stories that have always made Insight so great.
Then at 9:30, Dateline brings you inspiring stories from across the globe.
I'm going to do everything I can to protect my family.
At 10, it's The Feed, with unique stories closer to home.
How did you become an amateur spy?
And later, The Point, with black perspectives on the biggest news stories.
Unmissable stories on a night of unmatched current affairs.
Tuesdays from March 16 on SBS and on demand.
Gale force winds have devastated banana crops in North Queensland as tropical cyclone Niran gathers strength off the coast. The Category 2 system is currently more than 350 kilometres northeast of Cairns and is not forecast to make landfall. But the coast has still been impacted by strong winds, wiping out entire banana crops.
We never saw it coming. Everyone came to work yesterday morning. It was just a windy day, and within 3 or 4 hours it sort of turned into a bit of a disaster. So cyclonic winds that we found here were probably gusts of up to over 100 kilometres an hour.
The slow-moving cyclone is forecast to become a Category 3 system overnight as it continues tracking southeast into the Coral Sea. Well, his books have inspired imagination for decades, selling hundreds of millions of copies worldwide. But now 6 Dr. Seuss storybooks are being pulled from publication because they contain images deemed racist and insensitive.
Books? Socks?
An international children's bestseller across generations and an author of choice today for teachers in early learning centres around Australia.
I guess they're quite simple in terms of their repetition, so children often read along with us and children often have a Dr. Seuss book at home.
Theodore Geisel, who wrote under the Dr. Seuss pen name, created more than 60 titles, which continue to sell strongly in more than 100 countries. But 6 titles have come under scrutiny over their portrayal of ethnic stereotypes, including characters of Asian and African descent. The titles that have been scrapped include And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, If I Ran the Zoo, McAlligot's Pool, On Beyond Zebra, and Scrambled Egg Super, as well as The Cat's Quizzer. In a statement, the company which publishes the book said it had worked with a panel of experts, including educators, to review its entire catalogue and made the decision last year to cease publication and licensing. The panel said the books portray people in ways that are hurtful and wrong.
It's just evidence of how far we've come, that we look back at those images and we say, you know what, it just doesn't fit who we are and want to be.
But not everyone agrees.
It's just all about the cancel culture. I mean, it's getting to the point where you get deleted from history.
Outside a major Sydney bookshop, views also divided.
Leave it alone.
And do you think future generations will miss out?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my nieces and nephews all grew up in Dr. Seuss and they love it.
Others of the view the scrutiny is justified.
Probably the right thing to do, just mainly because people have more awareness.
While publication has been discontinued, it will be up to individual institutions to decide whether to keep or scrap the titles.
Definitely as educators we need to think about how we celebrate diversity and whether these stereotypes in certain books or certain Dr. Seuss stories are appropriate for children.
Dom Vukovic, SBS World News.
To sports news, and the international netball series between Australia and New Zealand is all square at 1 test each. After losing last night's opening test by 5 goals, the Diamonds bounced back in fine style this evening. Australia opened up a massive 15-goal lead during the first half, and although the Silver Ferns reduced the deficit in the second period, Australia held on. The home side produced some dazzling passing play. The Diamonds victorious 45-36. The 4-test Constellation Cup series continues on Saturday. The Socceroos will endure their longest period of inactivity from international competition following the postponement of this month's World Cup qualifier against Nepal. The match, scheduled for March 30 in Kathmandu, has been pushed back to June because of travel difficulties and will be included in a yet-to-be-determined centralised location. The last time the Socceroos assembled for international duty was way back in November 2019. Meantime, the Women's Rugby World Cup in New Zealand later this year has also been postponed because of COVID-affected travel disruptions. Up next, the weather, and Dolly Parton takes a dose of her own medicine. And she's even rewritten one of her hits to encourage others to get the vaccine.
Mastermind is back for a brand new season.
When Harry Met Sally, Captain America, The Smiths,
Britney Spears. I'm going to expect a full performance later, just so you know.
The new season of Mastermind, weeknights at 6 on SBS and on demand. Do you think people coming out of prison deserve a second chance? SBS are looking for people in New South Wales who can offer a spare bedroom to someone in need as part of a new documentary series. To find out more, go to sbs.com.au/casting.
Update your fridge now at Harvey Norman. This Kelvinator top-mount fridge is great value at just $995. Exclusive to Harvey Norman, this stylish Samsung fridge with a non-plumbed water dispenser, only $1,388. Great for families. This huge LG side-by-side fridge, just $1,995. Or get this amazing Fisher & Paykel quad-door French door fridge, only $3,695. Plus get 60 months interest-free with a bonus gift card. Now at Harvey Norman.
Go!
New tortilla pockets are ready for takeoff. And we are gone!
Launching to mess-free Mexican with new tortilla pockets from all El Paso.
Kev! Oh. Gross.
Hey Siri, can you get us to the dog wash?
I hope that's mud. Come on. Good boy.
Why are you so clean?
Yeah, they're running a 2-for-1.
At the dog grooming place.
Yep.
The all-new Yaris Cross. Small now has it all. Oh, what a feeling. Toyota.
Right now at Binglee, you'll get a bonus Woolworths e-gift card.
Worth up to $300.
With a selected cooking appliance, dishwasher, fridge or laundry appliance.
Just another bonus at Binglee.
Window fully pinataed, Keith. Some insurers don't fix it excess-free, which could affect next year's party budget.
That's not a pinata, Dad.
But luckily, Amy has an option that does, and that's what I call a pinata. Does your home insurer offer optional excess-free glass cover? Amy does.
Tonight from 7:30 on SBS. Take a look into the past and explore some of the world's best-kept secrets in Britain's most historic towns.
The secrets of the past are all around us.
Then at 8:30, pack your bags. It's time to hit the road in Michael Palin Travels of a Lifetime.
That was where the fun began, I thought.
And at 9:30, don't miss the dramatic final season of Vikings. That's tonight from 7:30 on SBS.
To the weather in the major centres, partly cloudy in Darwin and Sydney, sunny in Alice Springs, Adelaide and Canberra, a possible shower in Brisbane and Hobart, cloudy in Melbourne, a few showers and a possible storm in Perth. Looking further afield, a few showers in Auckland, partly cloudy in Christchurch, thunder in Nadi, Samoa and Tahiti. In Southeast Asia, thunder in Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, cloud in Jakarta, fine in Phnom Penh. Further north, fine in Beijing, cloudy in Hong Kong, Seoul and Tokyo, drizzle in Hong Kong. Heading west, fine in Baghdad, fog in Delhi, partly cloudy in Islamabad and Tehran, rain in Jerusalem. To Europe, fine in Athens and Budapest, snow in Moscow and Stockholm, a few showers in Paris and some rain in London. Africa, partly cloudy in Cairo, Johannesburg and Nairobi, fine in Dhaka, thunder in Lagos. In South America, showers in Bogota and Caracas, also in Buenos Aires, rain in La Paz and Rio, fine in Santiago. And for North America, fine in New York, Dallas and Denver, also in Miami, showers in LA and cloud in Vancouver. Well, Jamaican reggae great Bunny Wailer has died aged 73. He was the last surviving member of the original Wailers, also starring Bob Marley and Peter Tosh. Bunny Wailer recorded 10 albums during his career with the Wailers and later as a solo artist. The Trenchtown native died in hospital after suffering a series of strokes. Country music icon Dolly Parton has received her first dose of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine after donating to their research program last year. She's even rewritten one of her hits to encourage others to get the shot.
Dolly Parton, you could say, getting a dose of her own medicine.
Well, hey, it's me. I'm finally going to get my vaccine. I'm so excited. I've been waiting a while. I'm old enough to get it, and I'm smart enough to get it.
It was last year we reported Dolly Parton had donated $1 million to COVID vaccine research. Tonight, sharing this new video, getting the Moderna shot, a vaccine that she helped fund.
I'm very happy that I'm going to get my Moderna shot today. And I wanted to tell everybody, I think you should get out there and do it too. I even changed one of my songs to fit the occasion. It goes, vaccine, 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 vaccine. I'm begging of you, please don't hesitate.
Saying she waited her turn.
I've been waiting since December. I've been in line. Okay, here I go. All right.
Getting her first dose.
Think you got it?
I got it.
Okay. That didn't hurt. Just stung a little bit.
Tonight, Dolly getting the vaccine, encouraging everyone else to get one too.
That report from David Muir in New York. Recapping our top stories now, and Attorney General Christian Porter has strongly denied any wrongdoing after he identified himself as the minister alleged to have raped a teenage girl in Sydney in 1988. During an emotional news conference, he said nothing in the allegations ever happened and that he had been subjected to the most wild and intense accusations he could remember in Australian politics. Australian of the Year Grace Tame has hit out at the Prime Minister over his response to a rape allegation by former Liberal staffer Brittany Higgins. Speaking at the National Press Club, she also urged the nation's leaders to break the silence around child sexual abuse and do more to help survivors coming forward. And 2 demonstrators have been killed in fresh clashes at an anti-coup protest in Myanmar's second largest city, Mandalay, today, according to several local media reports. And that is the world this Wednesday. If you missed some of tonight's bulletin, you can catch up on the SBS News website shortly. And a reminder of how you can stay in touch with SBS News, go to our website or download the SBS News app. Plus, you can also find us on Apple News, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok and Reddit. And for information about COVID-19 in more than 60 languages, go to sbs.com.au/coronavirus. And I'll be back with our next bulletin at 11:15 tonight. From the team, I'm Darren Mara. Good night.